Hi everyone, I welcome you all at Apti Plus IAS platform. In these particular videos, we are going to analyze Hindu and Indian Express editorial articles. In these particular videos, we'll not just only discuss issue that is given in editorial, but rather we are going to discuss these particular aspects, these particular articles from background. We'll discuss the main concept as well as way forward. And also you'll find that the notes have also been arranged in the format of context, body and way forward. So now let's get started with the video. Okay. So first article that we are going to take here is with respect to the World Population Day that was observed recently, that is on 11th of July. Now, on this particular aspect, there are multiple articles that have come on World Population Day. For example, you can see there is one article, A Pathway for Most Populous Nation, that came, then A Case for People versus Population, India's Demographic Journey. So, in this particular, first of all, article, we are going to discuss this entire issue of population and related. Now, this particular topic is, first of all, important for our GS paper number 1. So, GS paper number 1, population and related issues. Population and related issues. Okay, directly it is mentioned. Now, before going in this article, first of all, let's discuss some basic background information that we have here. Now, guys, when we talk about population, so demography is the formal study of population. It is formal study of population. Now, there can be two types of demography. There can be social demography and there can be formal demography. Social demography and there can be formal demography. Now, formal demography pertains to the statistical tools. It pertains to the statistical aspects of population and population growth. And social demography understands the population growth, its impact on the society, social indicators related to population growth. They are the part of the social demography. So GS paper 1 that is talking about population and related issues, we are not needed to go in formal demography, rather we need to discuss the social demography. Now, when we talk about the population, some basic things you need to understand here is that basically there are certain theories with respect to population growth that are there. For static part of GS1, you should know that. It will take just few minutes. So first of all, we have Malthusian theory of population growth. We have Malthusian theory of population growth. Now, Malthusian theory of population growth simply provides this particular thing. According to them, they say that population will grow in the manner of geometric progression. For example, population will grow like this: 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, likewise. But they say that resources, they can never grow in this particular manner. Resources maximum they will grow and they will follow arithmetic progression. For example, if there was 1 kg rice that you were able to grow, then it will go like this. Okay. So what will happen? Resource production will follow arithmetic progression. Population will follow geometric progression. So what will happen? Always resources will be less. And as resources will be less, there will be perpetual poverty that would always be there. So there would be the state of perpetual poverty. Perpetual poverty. Okay. And as this particular population will go beyond a particular level, what will happen? What will happen? There will be the natural breaks that will be applied by the nature. What are these natural breaks? There would be pandemic, okay, pandemic, famine, or any such kind of thing. So this was the Malthusian theory of population growth. However, this Malthusian theory of population growth has now been discarded. Why it has been discarded? Because you see, there are many things in the present contemporary world that does not support this particular theory. Let's discuss those particular things or the criticisms, and just quickly we need to see them. Number one, what it does, empirical studies, practical studies don't support this particular theory. Why? Because we have seen that over the past few years there are population explosions that have happened in the cities such as London, okay, New York, Chicago. These cities have seen population explosion, but rather than declining, life standard has improved. Now you see, a middle class person in the today's period, he is living far better life than the royalty of the medieval times. So quality of life has improved. Okay, that is very clearly we can see. So, first of all, this perpetual poverty is not true. Perpetual poverty is not true. Second thing that comes here is that this particular theory, what it does, it has seen population as burden, population as pressure. So, it It ignores the concept of demographic dividend. It ignores the concept of demographic dividend. So this particular theory is discarded, not that much acceptable. Now we have some more better theories, and here now we have the theory of demographic transition, which explains population behavior more properly. Theory of demographic transition. Theory of demographic transition. Now, what this particular theory provides? This particular theory provides that the population growth would follow a particular pattern. What is this particular pattern? Let's understand this thing. So it says that population growth would happen in three phases. Three phases. Okay. Phase one. Phase one, what will be there? There will be high birth rate and there will be high death rate. High death rate. And because of that, population would stay stable. Population would stay stable or population will decline. Now, just you think this particular thing that India of 1850s, India in around 1900, 1910, high birth rate because ignorance is there, family planning is not there, contraceptives are not there. But death rate is also very much high because good medical facilities are not there, sanitation is not there, population is not growing. Then what happened? Then phase 2 of population growth. Phase 2. In phase 2, what will happen? High birth rate will continue. High birth rate will continue. But because of the advancement that will come in the medical technology, we find this particular thing that the death rate will decline. Death rate will decline. So more people are being born and less people are dying. Ultimately, what will happen here? There will be the population explosion that will happen. Population explosion will happen and majority population growth will happen here. And then thirdly, what happens? Thirdly, we find this particular thing that over a period of time, reproductive practices of the people, reproductive preferences of the people will change and uh, birth rate will come down. People will prefer smaller families. Death rate will also come down. Why? Because you see that over a period of time, what will happen? Medical advancements will continue. So lifespan will increase, better medical facilities, better sanitation. So death rate will also come down. And here what will happen? Again, the population will be stable. Again, the population will be stable. So these are the three windows through which any country's population will pass. So stable population, population explosion, and population stability. Now, where India is standing right now, first of all, you need to understand that, and then you will be able to understand that particular article in a better way. So basically, guys, if you see, so India's population explosion happened way back in 1970s. Today, basically, India's population is going towards a stability. How I can say this particular thing? So for that particular thing, you need to understand one more concept, and the concept is of total fertility rate and replacement rate. Total fertility rate and replacement rate. So basically, total fertility rate refers to it refers to the birth a woman is giving during her reproductive age. How many birth how many birth a woman is giving during her reproductive age. Then there is concept of replacement rate. What is this replacement rate? Replacement rate, according to United Nations Population Fund, it is that particular TFR at which a country's population will stabilize. Neither their population will go up nor their population will go down. Their population will stabilize. That TFR is called as replacement rate. And TFR, total fertility rate of 2.1. 2.1, it is called as replacement rate. Means that if a woman will give 2.1 birth, obviously 0.1 birth is not possible, but for the scope of margin, we take it 0.1. So if every woman will give these many birth, then the population of a country or a region will stabilize. Neither will go up nor will go down. Now, when we talk about the India's present total fertility rate, as per National Family Health Survey 5, as per National Family Health Survey 5, it stands at 2.0, 2.0, even less than the 2.1. So India's population has started to move on a downward trajectory. This impact would not be visible for next few years, or maybe for a decade or so. But India's population growth is clearly, now the trajectory is not moving forward because the TFR has come to 2.0. Now, what has happened, guys? At the same time, in absolute numbers also, India's population is, in total, it is on the upward trajectory. In fact, there was United Nation, basically UNFPA World Population Prospect report that was released, and that particular report also, it very clearly highlighted this particular thing, that India will replace the China as the most populous country by 2023, and that has clearly happened. Now, there are certain issues that we need to understand in the context of population growth in India, because recently World Population Day was observed. First of all, few basic things you need to understand. Now, guys, when we talk about the World Population Day, so World Population Day was established by the United Nations in 1989 on the advice of Dr. K.C. Zakaria. Dr. K.C. Zakaria. Now, this was a time when the world population reached 5 billion. Recently, it has crossed 8 billion. Now, first of all, guys, when we talk about India, so India's demographic journey has hovered from, for example, if you see, I told you that there was 1960s and 70s period. Now, this particular period, there was the population explosion that was going on, and fertility rate at that point of a time, I told you, 2.1 is replacement rate. So, what is the fertility rate at this point of a time? It was 3.4. It was 3.4. And right now, we have come below the replacement rate of 2.1. It stands at 2.0 according to National Family Health Survey 5. So, population has started on a decline. Also, here we see this particular thing, that what has happened. First of all, India is right now going through the window of a demographic dividend. Now, what is this demographic dividend concept? Let's understand this particular thing. So, demographic dividend is made up of two words, demographic and dividend. Demographic means something related to population, and dividend means an advantage, a benefit. So, demographic dividend means a peculiar advantage that a country will have because of young population. Now, India's average age is 28 years. So, we have exceptionally young population. And according to United Nations Population Fund, 2020 to 2040, these are the 20 years when India will go through the golden period of demographic dividend. This is the India situation. Now, you see what has happened over the years. There is obviously improvement in healthcare has happened, living standards have increased. Fine, because of that, life expectancy is also going up. You see this particular thing, India adopted the 2015 sustainable developmental goals. In total, there are 17 sustainable developmental goals. Within that, 169 targets are there, which span on health, which span on reduction of poverty, reduction of hunger, all these things. And India is doing a pretty good work. Poverty reduction has happened in India, and 48% people was below the poverty line in 1990, and today it has reduced to 10%. So India has done good, and young population is also there. But there is a flip side of this particular story. Today we have young population, but these people will become old in coming years. So India will also face the burden of grey population, burden of aging population. There will be the demographic aging that will also happen. So you see this particular thing, that when we talk about the demographic aging, old population, it will reach to 19.5% by 2050, 19.5% by 2050. So today Japan is a grey economy. Western Europe, they are also old grey economies. India will also become a grey economy by 2050. We need to be prepared for these particular things. We need to be prepared for these particular things. This lesson we should take on this particular World Population Day. The next thing, guys, you see this particular thing, that the health indicators are improving, and we have seen that even SDG goals we have taken, sustainable developmental goals we have taken. Now, in this particular capacity, if we just talk on some numbers, then guys, you see that MMR, maternal mortality rate. So maternal mortality rate refers to how many women are dying during the childbirth. So it was 384.4 per 1 lakh. Okay, MMR is calculated per 1 lakh, IMR is calculated per 1000. So this you should know. So it was 384 per 1 lakh in 2000, and now it has improved to 102. So means that basically 384 to 102, these many women now die in the childbirth, which is unfortunate, but we have done a lot of improvement, which is a very good thing. Okay, fine. Okay, that is something. Then after that, but at the same time, guys, if you see, there is one aspect which is concerning, and that aspect is hunger. Now, if you see, guys, global hunger index, India's ranking has been poor. Even when we talk about the malnutrition, its prevalence has been high. Now, malnutrition, there are three factors that play a very important role in the malnutrition. See, there is There is, you see, there is a stunting, there is wasting, there is stunting, there is wasting, and there is undernutrition. There is undernutrition. These are the three aspects of the lack of food. Three aspects, that is, of the lack of the food. Now you see this particular thing. Number one is stunting. When a child has less height compared to his age, that is stunting. Wasting, waste, yes, that is the stunting. Wasting is less weight compared to the height. It is the W is to H. Less weight compared to the height, that is the wasting. And then there is undernutrition. What is undernutrition? When a person is not able to get adequate calories as per the bodily requirements, that is the undernutrition. And all happens because of the lack of food. Malnutrition, it is a very big problem in India, and the malnutrition targets we have not been able to reach. And even National Family Health Survey 5 also have pointed out to poor numbers on these three particular indicators. Now, even government has started the Poshan Abhiyan. In Poshan Abhiyan, pregnant women, mothers, lactating mothers, and the children are focused. But still, we have not been able to reduce the hunger. Guys, more importantly, there is malnutrition, which is a big problem. Even equally big problem is the problem of hidden hunger. Problem of hidden hunger. Now, what is hidden hunger? Hidden hunger is when you are adequate, you are eating adequate food in terms of quantity, but that particular food is not able to provide the diversified nutrition. You see, in a balanced diet, three type of macronutrients are needed: carbohydrates, protein, and fat. But suppose I am eating only rice. Now, rice is good source of carbohydrate, but it will not provide me protein. It will not provide me enough fat. So what will happen over a period of time, if I do this every day, my body will develop certain deficiencies because I didn't got the fat, I didn't got protein. Moreover, in a balanced diet, 23 micronutrients are also needed. But if they are not there, then there will be these problems, fine, that will develop, and we call it as a hidden hunger. So hidden hunger, malnutrition manifested in these three forms is a very big problem. Now you see this particular thing. I told you that India will face demographic dividend window, golden window, and this will continue from 2020 to 2040. But if our population is not healthy, if our population is not nourished, what will happen? They will not be able to contribute in economic activity. And rather than getting the demographic dividend, we will land in the demographic burden. This population will become a demographic disaster for us. So focusing on their nutrition is the most important thing. Focusing on the nutrition is most important thing. One, focusing on nutrition is the most important thing. The next issue that comes here is that on social front, as India's population is growing, we have not been able to do a very good job. For example, income inequality has been a very big problem in context of India. Today, 10% population of India, they are holding 77% of the national wealth. This shows the social inequalities. And if higher social inequalities will be there, it will lead to social tensions, it will lead to dissatisfaction. Okay, that is also things that we have. Now, particularly guys, when we talk about the developmental aspects, so in socio-economic indicators, in the healthcare, in nutrition, we have certain states which are not performing good. That is the UP, Bihar, MP, Jharkhand. Fine. So these are the states which have the substantial population living below the poverty line. So number one, nutrition. Number one, healthcare. Number three, inequality. Okay. The next issue that comes here is the gender equity. Now guys, first of all, you see this particular thing that when we talk about the women, you see this particular thing that first of all, gender equality has been a very big problem. Fine. You see this particular thing, gender inequality is emergent. It can be observed at multiple themes. For example, female labor force participation rate of India is just 37%. Female labor force participation rate of India is just 37%. Okay, there are the patriarchal notions that are there. However, however, India is doing good work. Okay, and modern contraceptives are being provided to women. Fine. Through Janni Suraksha Yojana, they are providing the cash transfer for institutional delivery. We are working for their empowerment. On political front, what has happened recently? 106th Constitutional Amendment Act was passed. Through this 106th Constitutional Amendment Act, what has happened? 33% of the seats fine in parliament are being reserved for the women. This is something that we do, but still there are the significant challenges that are there, such as the labor force participation rate, political representation. Actually, the number of women MPs, it has came down in this Lok Sabha election. So there are challenges that are needed to be addressed. Then basically, as our population is going up, so it will also pose a certain burden on the climate change. Now you see this particular thing, guys, that today when we talk about India, India has one of the lowest carbon emission per capita, lowest carbon emission per capita. But as lifestyle of the people are improving, as income levels are increasing, moreover as in absolute number also the population will increase. So our population will put a lot of pressure on climate also, because of the carbon emissions that it will lead to. Okay, so this is something that is there. Okay, now today if you see, the country's development priorities are balanced with climate change mitigation effort. Fine. Now you see this thing that whenever climate change becomes an important priority, obviously it will put a drag on, you see, let me explain you in this way. Today, India gets a lot of energy through burning of coal. Okay, around 51% of India's electricity today is coming from the thermal power plants, which are fed by the coal. Now, coal provides us cheap electricity because we have abundant resources of the coal. However, it lead to carbon emissions. If we need to reduce the carbon emissions, we need to switch to some other forms of to some other sources of energy, renewable, solar. But deploying them, it is a very costly affair. And at the end of the day, what will happen? India will not be able to get the cheap electricity. Okay, if India goes too much on the climate front. So India has to balance both things at the same time. How we can get the cheap electricity, but at the same time, how we can become environmentally sensitive. This is something that we need to do, and that is India what right now is focusing upon. Right now, India is focusing upon. But anyhow, if the climate change will be there, the impact of climate change would be felt by India. There will be the extreme weather events that will be there, environmental degradation will be there, and always it has been seen, and even in India, that will happen. That wherever the climate impacts have happened, poor people, they have got disproportionately impacted. Even in India, these particular kind of things might be seen. So yes, getting the cheap electricity is important for India, but we cannot ignore environment and we cannot endlessly burn coal. India is trying to balance both these particular priorities at the same time. India is trying to balance both of these priorities at the same time. Then you see this particular thing that as India, the population is going up. As India's population is going up, India also, now you see, today India is the biggest democracy. We are biggest democracy, we are the biggest demography. So these are two D's, that is the democracy and the demography. They will go hand in hand. Because of India's vibrant demography and democracy, today India is emerging as the leader of the global south as well. Now you see this thing. What has happened? India has already hosted the Global South Summit. India has already hosted the Global South Summit. Okay, India is acting the leader of the Global South. We have already taken up the circular economy framework. What is the circular economy framework? Let's understand that, and then we will connect it with the population. You see this particular thing. There are the two models of economy. One is the linear model of economy, and other is the circular model of economy. One is the linear model of economy, and other is the circular model of economy. Let me explain you that, both of these. Okay. So, what is the linear model of economy? Okay. So, produce, use, and discard. Produce, use, and discard. Linear model of economy. Circular model of economy is that use, reuse, recycle, refurbish. Okay. You use a product, you reuse it, you recycle it, you refurbish it. After refurbishing, again use it. Okay. This is a circular model of economy. Now you see this thing, India already had focused on the circular pattern of consumption. India started with the life movement. India started with the life movement. And in this life movement, India has already said that we are going to adopt the circular model of economy. Fine, that has happened. Number one, that has happened. Now, right now, the world collectively is putting strain on the resources. India's population is going up, but India is adopting the circular model of consumption. So India, how it is balancing its resources, how it is not posing a lot of pressure on the environment, even the population is increasing. This India can teach to the other developing countries also. Now, almost all the developing countries today, they are having the rising population, and how they can adopt the circular model of economy that India is adopting, India can teach to them. And therefore, India can emerge as a true leader of the global south. This is one opportunity, one low hanging fruit that India has right now. Okay, now moving to the other dimension. The other dimension that comes here is that, guys, population of India is increasing. Now you see what these boxes are. These different boxes are providing you the different dimensions of the population, because this is only one dimension, that okay, population is going up. Okay, it will lead to poverty, it will lead to food insecurity. That's it. No, there are other dimensions. Other dimension is of urbanization. You see this thing, that India's movement of population is from rural area to urban area. Okay, so India's population movement is rural to urban migration that is happening. And this rural to urban migration is happening at a very high pace. We have different data. And if you see, it has been provided that India's two-thirds of the population will be living in the urban areas by 2030, which is a mark of the development, because as the countries even in the West, they have moved towards the development, their urban population has increased very clearly. That has happened. India will also see that, but it will put a lot of pressure on the urban infrastructure. Our cities are not equipped to deal with so many of the population. We don't have public infrastructure, we don't have roadways, we don't have the urban living spaces, we don't have accommodation. So it will put a lot of challenge on planning, on housing, on basic provision of essential services. So even in the planning, we need to accommodate all these particular things. Okay, then moving on. After that, the next thing that comes here is the policy and future directions, what we need to focus upon. So we need to focus on all the things that we have discussed, just that should be the focus. Number one, we need to focus on the socio-economic disparities that are there. Now you see, please write a line that there should not be the islands of prosperity in the sea of poverty. There should not be the islands of prosperity in the sea of poverty. Development should be balanced. Regional inequalities, regional disparities should not be there. So as a different states are having the different population growth rate, we need to ensure that the population growth rate of a state should not become a burden on their resources. We need to focus on equitable development. Then healthcare should be equipped to deal with the rising population. Nutritional intervention needed to be provided so that the population that will be there doesn't become a demographic disaster, should be healthy, can help in demographic development and demographic dividend. And at the same time, sustainable developmental goals that are there, 17 SDGs, they cover all the dimensions of development. That should be the focus area. So this is, guys, all about it. And now moving on to the next article. Okay, so here the next article that we have is a law around law, carbon climate resilient development. Okay, now this particular article we'll be seeing with respect to the GS paper number 3, environment and related issues. GS paper number 3, environment and related issues. Now, what has happened? So recently, Supreme Court has declared that under Article 21 of the Indian Constitution, there is a fundamental right to be free from the adverse impacts of climate change. So climate change that is happening, sea level that is rising, it has led to disproportionate impact on certain vulnerable communities. For example, guys, what is happening? There are the heat waves. So many people die. Okay, there are heat waves, so many people die. Then there are basically other natural disasters that are happening, due to which a lot of people are suffering. They are because of the climate change. So we can ask the policy from the government, we can ask the mitigation from the government, we can ask the protection against these adverse effects as our fundamental right. Supreme Court has declared it. Now you see, a lot of fundamental rights get implemented automatically, but for some other fundamental rights implementation, you need a law. For example, Article 17 talks about the abolition of untouchability. But for the abolition of untouchability, already we have come out with the SC/ST Prevention of Atrocities Act. Okay, so even for giving this right to the people on the ground, there is a law, dedicated climate legislation that is needed. There is a climate legislation that is needed. So a law which will provide the fundamental right against the climate change. Okay, now what should be the objectives of this climate legislation or climate law? It should be having broadly three objectives. Number one, development should be reoriented towards the low carbon, climate resilient future. Just few minutes back, I told you this particular debate that is going on, and the debate was with respect to should we burn coal and get the cheap electricity, or should we switch to renewable energy? Electricity will not be cheaper, but it will be more carbon sensitive. Okay, this is a debate that is going on. Now, basically the climate legislation that it is talking about, it says that as of now, cheap electricity is not important, but sustainable future is important. So it says that we need to go towards the low carbon economy. We need to go towards a climate resilient future, that kind of a future which can bounce back from the negative effects of climate change. So in the policy making, low carbon future should be the priority area. Then after that, internalize climate objectives in decision making. So all the processes that are happening, all the laws are being passed, even if they're related to climate or not, they should have this orientation of being climate sensitive. And finally, social justice should be addressed. Social justice by addressing the vulnerabilities and just energy transition. Now, what is this just energy transition? See, moving from coal to solar energy, or moving from coal to wind energy, this is energy transition. Now, but energy transition needs to be just, because if by forcefully and in very short period of time we'll do that, what might happen? It will put a lot of pressure on the financial resources. Now, financial resources are limited. I have limited money. I can use that particular money for healthcare, or I use that particular money for deploying windmill, solar parks. Okay. If suddenly I'll move to the renewable energy, what will happen? All the resources that are going for healthcare, education, food security, much of them will be diverted to this thing, which will lead to unjust energy transition. So we don't want unjust energy transition. We want the just energy transition. We want the just energy transition. So this will be the third objective. Now, globally, there are many countries which are coming out with the climate legislation, and around 67 countries are there which have come out about the which have come out with respect to the climate legislation. Now, India also need to finalize the climate legislation, but India's model of climate legislation should be suited to its own circumstances, to its own conditions. Okay, moving on. Now, you see, as of now, I also told you this particular thing earlier, that India has the low carbon emissions. India has right now the lowest carbon emissions. Okay, average carbon emissions of India are low. Okay, now you see this particular thing, that world over, different countries have already come out with a climate legislation. They already have very high carbon emissions. Keeping that in mind, they have framed the uh, climate legislation in those countries. India doesn't have that high carbon emissions. Okay, but the trajectory is going up. Trajectory is going up. So point again that comes here is that sustainable climate legislation, keeping in mind India's growth ambition, which might have negative impact on climate change, but as of now, we are not consuming that much. All these things are to be balanced. All these things are to be balanced. Okay. Also, certain bodies and institutions are also needed. That is, Independent Low Carbon Development Commission. Independent Low Carbon Development Commission. What this Low Carbon Development Commission will do? It will provide the advice to the government that how a particular objective can be achieved, but with minimal carbon emissions. Also, climate cabinet for strategic decision making is needed. So these are the some dedicated bodies and institutions that will help in making the legislation more climate um, climate sensitive. At the same time, the article also talks about that we need to emphasize the role of local government as well as the state government. So climate policy should not become just a centralized revenue in the hands of the central government. State government, local government should also be given the say here. So engage sub-national governments, means the state governments. Okay. Also, scientific support is to be given to the states, local bodies, financial support is to be given to them. So this should be the climate legislation that has been proposed by this particular article. I hope that you have understood it. And now moving to next article, the High Sea Treaty. Now this particular article was published in Indian Express newspaper, and this particular article again we are going to see with respect to GS paper number 3. Now this particular article we are going to see with respect to the GS paper number 3. Okay, so before going in this particular article, there are a few things that you should be first of all knowing. There are a few things that you should know first. You see, suppose this is the coastline of a country. Uh, Internally, there is a pond, there is some river. All they are called as internal water. Now, from coast till 12 nautical miles, from coast till 12 nautical miles, it is called as territorial waters. It is called as territorial waters. Then, next 12 nautical miles, next 12 nautical miles, it is called as the contiguous zone. It is called as the contiguous zone. Okay, and till 200 nautical miles, till 200 nautical miles, it is called as exclusive economic zone. Exclusive economic zone. And beyond, now 200 nautical miles from the coast is measured. Then beyond this 200 nautical miles, this particular area is called as high seas. It is called as high seas. Okay. Now you see this particular thing, guys, that basically when we talk about exclusive economic zone, this particular area, it is available in this particular area, the country can exploit natural resources. Okay, commercial exploitation of this particular area is in the hands of that particular country. Okay, beyond this 200 nautical miles high sea area, this water doesn't comes under the sovereignty of any one country. It is the international waters open for international shipping. Now you see what has happened over the years. This particular area has got neglected. Okay, basically we don't have conventions and treaties to protect the biodiversity, to protect the ecology in the high sea area. United Nations Convention on Law of Seas, United Nations Convention on Law of Seas, it largely applies to this particular area only. Okay, so what has happened for the first time? For the first time under the United Nations, there is high sea treaty that is being signed. Fine, high sea treaty that is being signed. Now the formal name, okay, Biodiversity Beyond National Jurisdiction Agreement. Biodiversity Beyond National Jurisdiction Agreement. I told you, not beyond 200 nautical miles, jurisdiction of the countries don't extend. So, biodiversity, fine, beyond national jurisdiction means beyond the 200 nautical miles. Fine, BBNJ treaty, BBNJ treaty. Okay. Now, you see this particular thing. You see this particular thing that this high sea treaty, what it will do? It will maintain ecological health. It will maintain ecological health, will reduce pollution in the high sea area. A lot of oil spills sometimes happened. There are the pollution by these ships, etc. that is there. So, improving ecological health, reducing the pollution and conserving the biodiversity. Now, what are the exact objectives? We'll see just in a minute. Give me 1 minute. Now, you see this particular thing that focus is outside exclusive economic zone. Now, 64% of the ocean, 64% of the ocean, it is high seas only. It is high seas only. Okay, so that will be protected. Now, what is the objective? What is the objective? There are 4 major objectives that are there. Number 1, protection of marine ecosystem. Okay, there will be marine protected areas that will be developed. So as we have national parks where we conserve the wildlife, in the same way marine protected areas will be developed where in the high sea area, and those marine protected areas, they will protect the marine ecosystem. Next objective is fair and equitable sharing of benefits of genetic resources. Now you see this thing. Suppose in high sea there is a particular type of algae is found, and let's say that algae has a lot of application in the medicine industry. Now that advantage is to be shared with all the countries. 1 or 2 countries should not take the advantage. So genetic resources that are there in the high seas, there should be the fair and equitable sharing of all those resources. Mandatory EIA. EIA stands for Environmental Impact Assessment. Mandatory EIA, Environmental Impact Assessment. Any project or any activity, if it is being taken up in high seas, what is the impact on environment? Such assessments need to be done. Then next is capacity building and technology transfer. Now you see, developing countries, poor countries, they have already resource constraint. They don't have resource even to take care for their internal things. How you can expect that they will also be taking care of the high seas? So technology transfer, financial transfers needed to be given by developed countries to the developing countries, towards the developing countries. Okay, I discussed about this particular word, marine protected area. So kya hai? They are similar to national park, and they will regulate the activities within the high seas, okay, to ensure marine biodiversity, marine life, flora, fauna is not disturbed. Now, this particular treaty, it is being compared with the Paris Agreement. Now, you see, in 1992, there was United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change that was taken up. Now, this UNFCCC became the major platform to take the climate change negotiations. Under UNFCCC, in 2015, there was a Paris Agreement that is being taken, that was taken up. Today, Paris Agreement is the principal law. Today, Paris Agreement is the principal law to regulate the environment. Okay, fine. That is there. Now, this particular treaty is being compared with the Paris Agreement. What Paris Agreement is doing for environment, it will do for the ecology. Okay, that is something that is there. Okay, benefit sharing, EIA, all that we have discussed. Now, this particular treaty, in order to come into force, 60 countries have to ratify it. 60 countries have to ratify it. Right now, 91 countries have signed, 8 ratification has happened, and India is about to ratify. India is about to ratify. So, this is the status that is there. Fine. Now, moving on, and let's discuss the next article. Okay. The ANRF plan has got off on the wrong foot. Now, this article will see with respect to GS paper number 2, issues related to education. GS paper number 2, issues related to education, and education will broadly fall under the social justice topic. Okay. Now, first of all, why this particular article has come in the news? Let's see the context, and then we'll go in this ANRF, what it is that they are talking about. Basically, guys, there are few things that you should be knowing first. See, there is a concept called as GDERD. GDRD stands for Gross Domestic Expenditure on Research and Development. GDERD, Gross Domestic Expenditure on Research and Development, means how much portion of your GDP you are spending on R&D, research and development. India's GDRD is 0.7%. Means 0.7% equivalent of our GDP we spend on R&D, research and development. But according to Niti Aayog, if we want to be a $5 trillion economy in the near term, minimum we should spend 2.5% of our GDP. We should spend minimum 2.5% of our GDP, 2.5% of GDP on research and development. On research and development. That is something that we have to do. Now, basically, we have come out with a dedicated body to enhance the R&D, to enhance the R&D expenditure. And you see this particular thing, what happened? India came out with the ANRF. That is the India came out with ANRF, that is the Anusandhan National Research Foundation. Now, what is this Anusandhan National Research Foundation? First of all, let's discuss that. Then we'll go in this particular article's context. So, you see this particular thing. Okay. So, basically, what is ANRF? ANRF will be the apex body that will enhance the ease of doing science in India. That will enhance the ease of doing science in India. It will mobilize the funding for research and development. It will provide the regulatory approval for the research and development. Now, it will provide strategic direction. Now, basically, what it will do? It will promote the innovation in science, technology, engineering, health, agriculture, and all the disciplinary areas. Now, originally there was another body to do this particular thing, to provide strategic inputs, to provide the directions in the science, and that is the Science and Engineering Research Board. So Science and Engineering Research Board was there, which was doing this activity, but now Science and Engineering Research Board has been subsumed. It has been made the part of the Anusandhan National Research Foundation, this new body. Now, this Anusandhan National Research Foundation, it will have the governing board. Now, this governing board will include Prime Minister, who will be the president. Prime Minister, who will act as a president. Then, Union Minister of Science and Technology, Education. Union Minister of Science and Technology and Education. They will be the vice president of this particular governing council of ANRF. So, who is the president? Prime Minister. Then there are the union ministers of science and technology and education. They will act as the vice president. And then there will be the ex officio members from Niti Aayog. Okay, and who will be the secretary, principal scientific advisor to the government of India. He will be secretary of this particular ANRF. Okay. Now, when we talk about this ANRF, I told you that it will focus on enhancing the R&D expenditure on science in India. Now, this Anusandhan National Research Foundation, it has been given initially the funding of 50,000 crore rupees. 50,000 crore rupees for the next 5 years. Now you see this particular thing. 50,000 crore rupees is the total budget. Fine. Now out of this, 36,000 crore rupees, that is 72%, would be mobilized with the private sector, and 14,000 crore rupees, that is 28%, would be brought by the government. So effectively, government is bringing only 28% share. Rest 72%, that is the 36,000 crore rupees, they expect to mobilize from the private sector. They expected to mobilize from the private sector. This is going on. This is the budget. First of all, the issue that comes here is that we say that minimum 2.5% of GDP is to be spent on R&D. But just 50,000 crore rupee budget, and that for 5 years, and government share only 14,000 crore rupee, it is very much less. Fine. It will not be able to make much a dent that is there. The next thing that comes here is that basically also government thinks that 72% would be brought by the private sector. But what is the policy mechanism to bring that? Why private sector will bring this particular money? At least one recommendation from my side is that if government would have declared that money that you are spending in R&D, it will be counted as your CSR expenditure, then it might have happened. The policy actions are not there. This is first of all the discussion on ANRF. Now what this particular article is talking about? This article talks about that recently this ANRF, I told you about the governing council. So recently a governing board and executive council was announced. Now you see that in governing board as well as executive council, there is the basically they do not have the members from central or the state university. Now see, 95% of the students, they are studying in the state universities and colleges in India, but they don't have any representation. Very high level representation, ministries of science and technology, education, prime minister, they are there. They say that in this ANRF, you need to bring the people from the grassroots, because they understand that what are the problems at the colleges in the state, what are the problem at the universities in the state, that they are not able to invest in R&D. So this particular article, what it is doing, it is criticizing the what it is doing, it is criticizing the composition of this governing board that has been now announced. Beyond that, we don't have much thing here, but this ANRF, just I wanted to explain you here, because this is a very important thing, and there is a probability that a question might come on this line. Okay, now moving on, and then we have this article, draft digital competition bill. Draft digital competition bill. Now we'll see this particular article with respect to the GS paper number 3. We'll see this particular article with respect to the GS paper number 3, digital economy and related issues. Digital economy and related issues. Okay. Now, basically, guys, first of all, context of this particular article, why this particular article has come. So, what has happened recently? Ministry of Corporate Affairs. Ministry of Corporate Affairs, what they did? They established Committee on Digital Competition Law. Digital Competition Law. Now, you see, basically competition is bad for market. Sorry, my apologies. Monopoly is bad for market. Monopoly is bad for market. Competition is good for the market, because if there is a competition, there will be the innovation that will be there. Okay, companies will try to bring better and better products so that they can outbeat their competition. So competition is always good in the economy. Monopoly is bad. Monopoly makes people, companies lazy. And to ensure vibrant competition, already there is Competition Commission of India that we have, and Competition Act that we have. It aims to ensure competition in the physical space, okay, in the brick and mortar businesses and those kind of things. But today, digital economy, digital entities, their clout, their size is increasing. So today, Google, it is a digital entity. Okay, Google is a digital entity. Facebook, Meta, it is a digital entity. So basically, today, what is happening? We need to ensure that the digital market should also have competition. There should not only be one Google, because there is only one Google, then it will further, it is a kind of a monopoly that will be created. So digital markets need to have a competition, and for that it was suggested that we need to come out with a draft digital competition bill. Draft digital competition bill. This particular bill will ensure that in the digital markets, vibrant competition is there. Now, what has happened? What has happened? So recently, draft digital competition bill was introduced to maintain competition in digital markets, and it has talked about the ex post and ex ante framework. Ex post and ex ante framework. Let's discuss that. What is this ex post and ex ante framework? Now, ex post framework. You see, right now, Competition Act of 2002, sorry, and Competition Commission of India, they focus on ex post framework. Means once any entity has tried to kill the competition or they have done any anti-competitive behavior, then action would be taken. Then action would be taken. So this is a traditional competitive law. It will come in practice. It will get activated once any anti-competitive thing has happened. Matlab post-mortem kind of approach. But what is ex ante framework? In ex ante framework, preemptive steps can be taken up so that anti-competitive actions don't happen in the future. Don't happen on the future. So see this particular thing. You are taking a pill, you are taking a paracetamol. Once you have got the fever, exposed. Let's say you, before even you got the fever, you are taking very good care of your health so that fever or any disease doesn't happen even in the future also. That is the ex ante. So what is ex ante framework? Ex ante framework has been suggested in this digital competition bill. Means that they are talking that we need to take action even before some anti-competitive behavior has happened. Now what is the justification? Now you see this particular thing, that the digital markets, they rapidly grow. Rapid evolution is happening, rapidly they are growing. Okay, there is huge economies of scale. Digital market, huge scale is there. So if the scale of digital market is so big, people involved in digital market is so big, that if we will wait for some practice to occur and if we will act then it will be very much late. Late. So therefore we need to go for proactive regulatory approach. Okay, now what are the draft basic features of this particular bill? Number one, it focuses on dominant digital enterprises. Okay, dominant digital enterprises. Now, who are the dominant digital enterprises? These are the companies operating in the domain such as search engine, Google, social networking, video sharing websites. Okay, now, okay, so the 10 digital services it has talked about. And in these 10 digital services, the biggest players will be called as the dominant players, dominant digital enterprises. Now, what is the criteria for being dominant? Number one, significant financial strength. They should control a huge chunk of market. They should control a huge chunk of market. They should have a lot of financial exposure. They should have a lot of financial exposure. The next is that significant spread. Self-explanatory that it should cover a lot of people. Systematically significant digital enterprise. Okay, for example, Google, okay, YouTube, they have become systematically very important. A lot of things depend on them. Okay, then obligations are there. Number one, self-preferencing is not allowed. For example, Google cannot prefer their own Google apps on their Google Play platform, restricting third-party application. So sometimes, for example, if Google, let's say Google runs this Google Play Store. On this Google Play Store, if they don't allow some other third-party apps, that is not allowed, that is prohibited. Anti-steering, limiting business users from communicating with end users. Okay, for example, guys, you see this particular thing. Suppose I take a service from a software company, and through that particular service I am serving other people. For example, guys, you say this particular thing that suppose I want to stream some video, and for that I am bandwidth, okay, I'm learning management system I'm taking from some other company. Okay, they are not telling me that who are my actual users. That is not allowed. Tying bundling, compelling use of non-essential services. So suppose if you let's say you want the cloud storage from Google. Suppose you have run out of, suppose you use Google Drive. On Google Drive you can store your files. Now let's say you run out of the Google Drive. Okay, you want more space storage in your Google Drive. Let's say you want 100 GB more storage, but Google is forcing you that, okay, if you want to buy Google Drive, you have to buy Microsoft One also, you have to buy this also, that also. Not Microsoft One, they are selling you other Google services also. If you want to buy more Google storage, you have to buy other Google services also. They cannot do that. Bundling, cross utilizing user data services. So if let's say there are related platforms under a company, if one platform has collected our data, that data should not be given to others. All this is there. Now basically these kind of laws are being opposed also. In India also it is being opposed. Why? Because this is a very new law and we don't know effectiveness of this ex ante model. In European Union it is being experimented. What will be the impact on India? We have not seen this particular thing. it will have negative impact on the startup investments. Now India is a thriving ecosystem for the startups. It might discourage those particular startups. Okay, and then MSMEs, for them the cost will be escalated. So these are the problem areas, but at the same time there are some positive points are also there. And the positive points are something like this. Positive points are something like this, that if we don't act now, then some of the startups, they become so monopolistic that they will kill the entire competition. Then it might not be right. So this is, guys, all about this particular thing. And with this, we come to an end to this particular session.